Good, beautiful morning. It's your girl, Leanne. Let's get blissed out. This is Shedding into Soul Culture, podcast number 5. I'm super excited because I love how podcasting can allow me to be in front of a camera and also shed information into the world of the collective of spiritually growing and evolving. As I was on Facebook recently, I came across this beautiful human, Emily Davies. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I came across her wisdom on the pelvic floor and the things that she's offering. So this podcast is about many things surrounding wound healing, womb healing, the pelvic floor, the importance of that, and two humans here, myself and Emily, sharing and reflecting some of our personal experiences, not only with ourselves but with clients, and how this can change your life. So, Emily, thank you so much for making time Sunday morning.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. And you are living where? Where are you living?
I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Cincinnati, Ohio. So I'm in Canada, I'm British Columbia.
Yeah.
And so then you're more what, Eastern or Central in America? Where is that?
It's an Eastern time zone. But it's sort of towards the central line, but still in Eastern time.
Okay. So closer to like where in Canada, you'd be more like Ontario lines, like more or less on the opposite side in there in America.
Yeah, Windsor, Canada is just north of where I live.
Okay. So cool. So friends that are out there, just know that you have reach of her, anybody who does see this. And these podcasts are here because it's a growing movement coming from a heart-based community podcast into shedding into soul culture. Number 5, a reminder about what soul culture is about is as we work on ourselves, we come to understand we're not this mind, we're not this body. And the soul is moving us through this liberation process of understanding and educating us back to a healthy way of seeing. And so these knowledges that we gain in our divinity, in our divine sacred practices, really leads us back to seeing each other with new eyes and the wisdom to be the difference and to be the change that we want to offer to others. And that's really where the soul culture roots are. But the shedding is the methods. And so maybe, Emily, you can talk about, your history, your background, what you're doing, and how you started talking about the pelvic floor.
Sure. Yeah. I love the theme of this podcast. It's so beautiful because it speaks so closely to the true heart of my work, which really is reconnecting the heart with the sex and merging the two and allowing the two to sort of fuel like a pleasure-filled life, a beautiful life, like a recreation of Eden on earth again. But the path has brought me to yoga, and then specifically finding like pelvic floor healing essentially through the methods of yoga. But there's a sort of parallel story that happens with the pelvic floor. It isn't just about the physical body. And yet it's a way that we can take the deep dive into ourself. Like I can say like, it's the deepest part of yourself, so if you get to know that part of your body, on some level, you're also getting to know like the deepest part of you and allowing that energy to flow deep inside. So I was introduced to sacred sexuality, I guess, about 8 years ago. And also before that, before I really knew it was a thing, it was something that my inner self was emerging in my own life and my own practices with my partner, sex and my sexual life. And so when I found, it was Tom Kenyon's book, Mary Magdalene. Oh my gosh, the name is escaping me right now, but
I know the book. I forget the name myself, but I know the book. Yeah.
I know the name so well, but I'm a little nervous and sometimes my brain forgets things. It was more of a remembering. It was a remembering of the way things could be in terms of relationship and sexuality and love, and really using the exchange of love and intimacy as a tool to fuel the energy of life, and moving through this third dimension from a full cup, from a loving cup. And then the temple practices, you know, and the trainings that women and men had experienced at some time in history about how to connect with this very powerful and potent force that is their sexual nature. And so I've been moved by that for so long. And then in terms of this world, just seeing like the levels of abuse, specifically child sexual abuse, is one of my deeper motivating wounds that I feel called to serve with the work that I do to help people sort of move forward in their lives and transcend these very painful times that can cause a lot of harm to their physical bodies, their emotion, and their spirit, and help people reclaim the spirit of their sexuality and sort of reclaim their innocence. So all of that is sort of like the process under the process for people who are ready to go that deep. That is an opportunity. There is an opportunity to do that. But right now, I'm really focused on getting these techniques and skills for helping people really have like a sixth sense with their pelvic floor. So I have an online course called Unlock Your Pelvic Potential. And it's like a 5-day educational arc that teaches women about their pelvic floor, a model on wellness, using like the pelvic floor as an integrated part of the whole, as a part of the core, as a part of the pressure system, how we can connect to it with breath, and then teaching them how to stretch and actually feel and sense this part of their body so they can then strengthen and empower this place of their body rather than just kind of squeezing down there and hoping for the best, that people really can feel and understand what's going on and how to work with their unique body in the way that serves them best.
It's so good. So let's reflect, because listeners, you know, as we talk about these big topics, doing the work has more results to understanding this topic than anything. And myself, as a practitioner of yoga since I was 15, and I'm hearing you and I'm reflecting you. I'm also, in the last 2 years, I've been through some very hard, energetic, psychic, sexual attacks also. So there's realms upon realms of lack of communication. There are awakenings where we have to mature through even the pelvic floor of understanding our own rising of Kundalini, our own energetic unknown stuff that can just be as misunderstood as the child rapes of any other human that's raping any other human, and why the wounding process that everybody's experiencing from time immemorial is there because there's a lack of divine worship and the divine worship of ourselves and our comprehension of the unknown. So a lot of this is learning and unlearning, and a constant cycle of learning and unlearning, because I'm showing up with my own personal experience of psychically connecting to souls and then having divine power wake up me of Shakti, Shiva Shakti energy, which we know in the Eastern philosophy is divine masculine and feminine within us. Now, being born in the West, and I'm born Christian, having divine awakenings through yoga from age 15 to 19 and now 45, the process of even understanding the knowledge, the Sanskrit language, the patience and meditating for over 30 years. Why I'm bringing a point to this importance, even for anybody to do a workshop with you, is to know it's such a personal, internal trust. And then even the energy that we're awakening that we vow to be sacred, energetically we'll meet everybody where they are. And so that's also a very big part of compassion in this realm of our sexuality, is that we're all containers of this powerful energy, but how to do our best with it. Because porn is such a huge problem in the world, and we have lost our connection with love. We've lost our connection because this energy has been pushed away by generations and generations and generations of fear and neglect and lack of value for women and men. Nobody's to blame here or pinpoint, but why I'm bringing this up, because this is what's being triggered as I'm listening. And this is what's coming up for me and why I have a podcast on shedding into soul culture with such wonderful understanding and information that you have to offer, Emily, is end of the day, each person has to rediscover many, many layers of themselves through their personal power. and the vulnerability that comes from pure observation of non-judgment.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that sheds a little light into what it would be like to have a sacred circle, is that, you know, the power, the life force power of our sexuality, it sheds many, many layers that brings us into joy, but we're still in a process of evolving with that sacred sexuality as a human race, because everything is so locked behind doors in trying to understand and develop, when that energy awakens within our body, what it really is and what it means to everybody individually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I just thought I'd give a little bit of my feelings there. And I think it's important for more people to keep talking about the importance of our pelvic floor, like you're doing. And I think talk a little bit more about, you know, what people would experience in 5 days with you.
Um, you know, it is very much a personal journey. And that is sort of the beauty of this work. It's that I, as their guide, can be a person to help them feel safe in their body again and teach them specific physical skills that that allow for the inner self and the space to open up inside of their body to experience whatever is present for them, wherever they are, like you said, meeting them where they are. So there's a deep array of experiences that women have when they begin connecting with this part of their body. And there's always this air of mystery, right? Because it's a sexual mystery, it's a body mystery, which means that it's undefined. And so, you know, I see that my role as a facilitator is to remain relatively neutral and teach the skills and hold the space of love and hold the mirror, you know, depending on the relationship. Right now, in the 5 days, it's essentially a skill based learning. And you know, I get women commenting on, you know, being able to have sex again for the first time after having maybe a surgery in their pelvic region or a hysterectomy, for example. I get experiences of women feeling, this is one thing that's been really neat. Quite a few women who are in their in menopause or perimenopause are being called to reconnect with their pelvic floor. They might be experiencing some physical issues, but they're feeling this. One woman described it as this like deep descent of like the energy of their sexual energy is different as their body is changing. And so, you know, it is a little undefined. There is a mystery in terms of what people will discover, but the 5 days itself is pretty cut and dry. Like I said, it's like the knowledge and then the experience of the breath, the stretching, the strengthening. And then, you know, we do like an internal massage to help women again get more hands-on with their body.
I like the clarity of the unknown meeting the known. And I think that this is important, why I would want to interview or bring it into Shedding to Soul Culture, because there are aspects of us where we are, and highlighting, when I talk and I highlight specifically about my own personal experiences, is just the sensitivity of showing up and being vulnerable to this topic for other people to say, I got to show up and be vulnerable. Because anything that you're doing in this area, which everybody is curious about life force energy or our sexual energy, the importance of it is bringing into the heart. And that's the key that you're talking about, rising it into the heart and having a heart explosion with love, bringing it back to love. And that's where I feel, when I talk about wound healing or I talk about my own personal experiences, I've had experiences with love, but then there's been poor communication, but energetically, there's been energy merging. And I have understood that, but then poor communication or manipulation. And people can use these sexual energies against you, and you can feel that, but you know the root underneath is something is trying to communicate with you, not only your personal power, but somebody. And so in our understanding, as somebody would say, go through 5 days with you on their sacred sexual journey with themselves, what are we pushing and pulling through with every interaction? Because that same mirroring effect is there with every interaction that we have with everybody of our sacred sexuality once it's awakened. And then coming into your heart, but owning that power and grounding your power into the ground as a woman and holding that energy to heal others that are going to be drawn to you will also start to happen. And so why I'm talking outwardly a little bit about the vulnerability of the attractions of wound healing through this is that everybody will have wounds down there because of the generation of resistance to holding that energy in your personal power. It's in lineages of many, many aspects of all of our family genetics, divine feminine and women, like masculine. And that doesn't mean that there's not good relationships on the planet where people are evolving through this, but there's been more repression on this topic than anything that you will also have to go through while you're awakening your power. And I think that's a very important part of this topic, is recognizing the good and the bad, and then being the pure observer of it. And understanding it. It's uncomfortable at times. Love is something that can be very messy and very painful at times, as much as it is joyful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have a, just to add a little bit about my personal experience, I have, a gift of seeing shadows, I guess it could be, which can be, it's necessary to have strong spiritual community and practices, and be, for myself, to do the deep dive on and clarify and purify and work toward, like, clarifying those lines, especially like my own ethics, my own morality, getting to the pure source of this creative energy. And that way, I think when women come to work with me, like, my inner work has been to help them see what they're ready to see, and not force them to see anything they're not ready to see, and I think that's I would say that that's my role as, like, a facilitator at this stage where I am on my spiritual journey. And then I think what you're saying is really, really important. There are a lot of wounds, and I think that, I'm learning to find my voice in the way that is, like, helpful for speaking of and calling out these wounds. And what is that translation? What does that look like when you speak to a broader audience? Because I guess my fear is, like, doing more harm than good by maybe calling out things that people aren't ready to see or feel. And then at the same time, walking this line of, like, the mirror or the space holder, where, the energy sometimes asks people to see what they're not quite ready to feel. So I take it as, like, the unlock your pelvic potential model is really that opportunity to feel safe in your body and build more nervous system resistance. And then, every woman in their own time, in their own way, like, as they're ready to go deeper, if they want to go deeper, they can. So that's sort of how I'm handling that at the moment. But I will say, like, the pain of the sexual wounding, the generational pain that's come from religious institutions, patriarchy, and just oppression and shame and guilt around, like, sexuality, and our world not really understanding other models for sex and relationship than, like, the traditional model, of, like, male and female, or, now I think we're a lot more open to gender variations, but still, like, polyamorous relationships are still very challenging. So it's like, when people start to feel that inner pulse of their sexual ways, that the energy that wants to move them, but then they have this filter of the ego in this culture, in this world, and the challenges that they're presented by, so I think there's still a lot that we're awakening to. And as a collective, we move more into the heart, and we kind of disconnect, like, possession, attachment, and control and power battles from our sexuality and from our love, then we'll have a much more beautiful experience. And for now, I think the big work is in helping people gain a sense of consciousness around their sexuality, and really open their mind and become very curious, like, what could be possible for me? What type of love, what type of sex, relationship, pleasure could be possible for me? So I think that's a really good starting point for where we are now. And that takes the wound, and rather than going in the rabbit hole of the negative energy that I would say, in some ways, between sex being like a commodity and even sensuality being like a commodity and property, and people not being understanding their sexual nature, and therefore becoming very much entangled in like predator prey or power battles.
Mm.
um, that we, you know, once we can become more conscious of our own sexual nature, like the animal that we are, and the soul energy and this powerful creative force that wants to move us, the creators that we are. um, you know, I guess what I'm saying is we're on the way, but we're at a certain level right now, and I think we're at a certain level of consciousness, and I'm really here like, well, let's just become more conscious. Let's become more conscious. Let's start there. Everybody, like, that's kind of your responsibility, if I can say that. Like, I would ask everybody, like, just become more aware of why you do what you do, what you feel, what you shut down, what you repress, why you act the way you do. Like, and then we're getting somewhere as people start to have more, shedding more light on this area.
Yeah,
It's
I think
very much in the dark.
that
Yeah.
I think the beauty of this topic also brings up morality and responsibility
Yeah.
and life lessons. Even when the animal or the sexual energy is active, is when you come in contact with love through it, because it all turns into the heart. And then we have to consider every layer of a human being we're engaging with. And so, end of the day, what do we want? We want unconditional love, because we are unconditional love with all of these aspects of messiness and colors in this humanness, right? And my personal experience of being on a journey with many aspects of love and in suffering is rising through each aspect of when I felt love. What did I really want? Or the great wisdom of the great lovers of the gods, when I studied them and I saw the behavior when I worshiped them. How did I feel? How did I want to be loved when I seen or read stories or felt beautiful poetry or beautiful bliss of our koshas, right? We have all these beautiful kosha bodies, and they all need fulfillment every day in our aspect of yoga. I mean, I'm a certified teacher, you're a certified teacher. We know we're doing the work on ourselves. We come to see samadhi in the Eightfold Path, in the 8 limbs of yoga. We understand it. I go into full samadhi. I'm 30 years doing this, and I see my kundalini rise. I have all the power of all the devatas within me. But do the devatas want to take? Love is an offering. Love is a giving. Love is a receiving. And so even the power of the animal that wants to be free within us has all these layers. And these layers to consider. That's why I talk about trauma. That's why I talk about wound healing. That's why I talk about, what is it like to even, like, for people to go through self-enjoyment and connect with themselves again, self-love, tantra, self-connection, and a state of no mind. What happens? Okay, so the lights go on inside and you learn that you can actually make love to yourself. Now, how do you share that with somebody else? And when you share it with somebody else, what happens? A lot of traumas will be releasing, because love is the healer. So why I talk openly about the other aspect of trauma or pain or psychicness or the power. We talk about power. How are we using power? Because if our sexuality and our womb is rising those lower chakra energies of our power into our heart, the whole point is to love more, right? So I love this topic. And I was telling you, I did the Navratri for 9 days, and going deeper into, like, what was the story of Shiv Shakti when, Sati, in one form of Shakti, had died. She had burned herself because her father wouldn't accept Shiva. Her body was cut up into 90 different pieces, and there's 90 different temples in India of her body parts. One body part is her yoni, her vagina, and it's being worshipped, and it bleeds at different times, just like our body bleeds. Do you know that really gave me back in my personal power? We talk about personal power. It gave me back the Devi inside of me that's bleeding, that I'm not having a period of pain. I'm having a pleasure of reproducing energy and flowing with the divine feminine. So I wanted to bring that into the aspect of what you're doing with the pelvic floor, because for me, it's all sacred sensuality, but sacred wisdom of what are we as a yogini? What is the truth? Truth, consciousness, and bliss, Satchit Anand. These beautiful mysteries of the ancient wisdom, when you dissolve into nothing, shunya, samadhi, that which is not. What is that bliss of the divine feminine, the divine masculine within you? So I thought that this would be a beautiful combination with what you're doing with the pelvic floor and how people can celebrate with you. And I could learn with you today because we're all facing this beautiful journey as we're ascending as yoginis. And what a better topic for people to start opening up more. And I think we should have more of them, Emily. I think there's a lot where me and you could open up a lot together, sweetheart. And I think that what you're doing, and I commend you, I wanted to commend you because I was like, I got to get your attention. Who's this girl? What is she doing? After doing 9 days of Navratri and going into the sacred wound awakening, even the last moon that we just had was the sacred bloody moon of Shakti. And I had my period and I was able to experience it like Shakti. So that's when the real power of what we call animal becomes goddess. Mm-hmm. And we release the animal into divine feminine, masculine merging. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's where people can miss. And that's why there's so much perversion with the animal nature of sexuality, is because they have to rise it into divinity of God, goddess within them. And there's more morality, the balance of morality. We have so much problems with morality with our sexuality because we still think like an animal, but we have the intelligence of a God. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on that, you tell me more. Tell me, we got about 8 more minutes here. I just love what you're doing. Keep sharing and spreading this wonderful wisdom because it's touched my life. And it was just so good to get here right now.
Yeah, same. I'm learning from you as well. I just love hearing you speak about your experiences. It's just so captivating. And I feel a transmission from you just from what you're saying and experiencing.
Let's just go to India.
I've never been. I think
I haven't either, and it's 30 years as a yogini, but I've internalized it all, and all the Godhead that they speak of and all the books that we read as yoginis, I've internalized it all. Now the only thing is, as I grow, and I really feel this is a beautiful part of what I'm learning, and we're doing this so spontaneous between us, is little things that we get to help each other with without even knowing each other, is really taking that animal nature into God.
Yeah.
The only way that we're going to change where perversion is with our sexuality, God, look at each other and they purify. Animal natures will be playful in the bedroom. Yes, God will use that, but they're already above it. And going beyond the animal nature in utilizing the goddess, that's when we become golden, the highest dimension of the 12th dimension of what we're actually seeking in our ascension process. We evolve through, and the evolution of what they say, the 5D and all this is happening consciously in the yogas. Right now we're in the Kali Yoga, going into a different yoga. The shift of consciousness of remembering what we truly are as Satchidananda, truth, consciousness, and bliss. And so I know when I share the pain of the vulnerability of what happens in relationships because the animal meets versus the goddess meets. And even if a goddess meets, does it have the maturity to communicate through it? Yeah. And that's what we're learning and unlearning. Every relationship, we're learning and unlearning. Why relationships are not working is because they haven't met the divinity in themselves yet to reflect it, but to walk together and to communicate through their sexuality. Otherwise, it just becomes lower vibration and it goes nowhere. It doesn't really merge in the heart together.
Beautiful. And so if can I ask you a question? Because yeah. As I hear you talk about like the God and meeting in the bedroom and the animal nature, I guess what would you say women and people and men experience like if there's a disconnect there? Like what are the real practical like experiences of being in that moment and feeling like you're not meeting the highest calling? Do you have any kind of like markers or?
So my personal thing with my own sexuality and being a single mom for 22 years is I spent a lot of time healing wounds of what men didn't give me, obviously, like lack of marriage, abuse, rape, whatever it may be. So we are mirrors, like you talk about mirroring, we are mirrors to those pains that all humans are carrying from their ancestors. Like my mother and her journey, and then my sister, like everybody has some wound, which passed through every lineage, because we are all clones of each other. We all look alike for a reason, right? And so we're just carrying more and more of those finer aspects that each individual of the family members have a chance to shift if consciously they meditate. So if meditation has started before you make love, you've already dropped into zero. Imagine the touch of zero meeting zero. The value of the one, nature and flow, will move as Kundalini is moving, and will not have to forcefully expand through the mind, but through the essence of the soul meeting a soul. And that is the perfect play of the golden energy of the God Goddess. So meditating before and after and holding energy. So when we finish holding that energy and feeling and remembering, and then you can take that within your day. You're at lunch and then you can feel your partner. But if you don't have a partner, you can feel yourself and accept yourself, because you're carrying God Goddess within you, masculine and feminine, right and left hemispheres of the brain. We are complete in ourself and our wholeness, but we're working on our wholeness so that we can attract the right whole partner that's in alignment with what we love about life. And when it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Unfortunately, it is what it is. And there's a sacrifice in learning about love. There's always a sacrifice with our life and our karmas and growth, but not forgetting to be whole with yourself first. And those things that don't feel right with your inner voice, it's real. Don't go near it. It's not for you. Don't go near that place, because it's not good for you. And sacred sexuality is taking your power back into your power for your purity. To enter the kingdom of heaven, we must be childlike. Be childful in the bedroom. Be playful in the bedroom. Don't lose the innocence. And the animals are playful. If they're going to kill each other and eat each other, that's a whole other thing. What would be the result of that? Somebody would die. So if you're dying into your partner and then you're rising into Phoenix rising, okay, but be aware consciously that that's just another illusion of playfulness. So that would be some of my wisdom. But that has to be enjoyed alone and together, because your aloneness helps you to share deeper your own inner growth.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. Beautiful.
Beautiful you are. I'm so excited to have another podcast. So your 5-day, this is like my niche, a huge niche, other than yoga, because yoga is the earth and tantra is the sky. And we need both in order to expand. But how have I worked on this for over 30 years? I have. And I think there's so much to get from you. I'm so excited to continue this. And listeners, bear with us, because shedding into soul culture is a way where we can come in a moment, be spontaneous, share some raw footage. Remember, making love's raw. Our talks are raw. If you can get more raw, life is beautiful. Less makeup, more purity, more inner beauty. And we can come back to each other one by one, looking into each other. That's the change that humanity needs, I really believe. And that's what's going to heal the womb of the mother and the father within us. So let's talk soon more. You want to leave any notes about where we can reach you for your 5-day workshops?
Yeah, so I have like a website. I'd probably be better to put it in the notes if we can.
Yeah.
It's or you can follow me on social media, on Instagram and Facebook at Emily Rae Davies. That's RaeDavies. And yeah, we're currently working on another program for core training. But aside from the pelvic potential, we have 4 online courses. So when you say yes to unlock your pelvic potential, you have an opportunity for pleasure pathways and a program to find your voice, and something to help rewire your stress and anxiety response. So it's sort of all packaged in there together. And we have a really beautiful Facebook community that's growing. That's one of my and this is for course owners, but it's one of my one of my loves, I would say, is kind of we're working on holding the safe space for women as they're diving into the deeper parts of themselves, learning these skills and how to translate that into self-love and love with others.
So thank you so much for showing up.
Yeah.
I look forward to having you again, and I will put our links together. Thank you, audience, for being there, shedding the soul culture. It's your girls, Leanne and Emily Davies today. Namaste.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.